right.
We're taking all the best old school wisdom and blending it with the top new school methods to bring you the optimal coaching strategies. This is the 80-20 Baseball Podcast with Coach Bo.
Welcome, youth baseball community, the baseball community, by and large, the 80-20 baseball coaching community. Welcome to this week's episode, our weekly get-together where we fine-tune our coaching game, become better coaches so we can have a more successful time out there on the field. Our teams can be more successful. Our players, our kids can have more fun, be more successful. And one of the big side benefits of this podcast is that much of what we discuss helps us be better parents. It can also help us be better leaders. In fact, I got an email not that long ago from a listener who uses a lot of what we discuss on here when it comes to leading a team in the workplace, leading a team of firefighters, and having a lot of success with the 80-20 rule, 80-20 principle, among other things. So it's great to be here for our weekly get-together coming out every Tuesday. In this episode, we have part one of our interview with Coach Adam Sarancik. Coach Sarancik is back, and this interview is even better than the first one. The topic of the interview, of the discussion, is, quote, common questions from the 80-20 podcast audience. So I shared with Adam the most common questions, the 5 most common questions that I've received from all of you. And he breaks them down. He gives practical solutions and a ton of great insight, a lot of wisdom. I'll dive into Coach Sarancik's background here in a second. But first, I want to share a tip that is one of those golden tips, golden suggestions, in my opinion, meaning it will help all your players to varying degrees, some a lot, some a little, but it will help all of your hitters. One simple adjustment to the environment, more specifically, batting practice. And when your kid is facing batting practice pitching machines, which of course is very common, and even soft toss or short toss from you or a teammate. By the way, stay behind the L screen. I saw a picture of a coach the other day posted on X. It was not pretty. Got hit by a ball. That baseball is coming fast. Throw the pitch and get behind the L screen. And if you're coaching some of those older levels, let's keep in mind, we're in our 40s now. Some of us 30s, some of you are in your 50s. A lot of you were awesome athletes when you were 16, when you were 18, and maybe even into your early 20s. But Father Time catches up. And so my point is, let's not overestimate our reaction speed and reaction time. But with that said, anytime you're coaching a hitter or setting up a batting practice, whether that's coach pitch, a player pitch batting practice, anytime they're hitting off a pitch coming at them, could be a short toss, even underhand, which I'm not really a huge fan of. I'd rather the throws come from over the top, because it creates similar angles of that of a baseball pitch. But nevertheless, anytime hitters are facing a ball that's coming at them, they should know whether they are in a less than 2-strike count or a 2-strike count. Hitters should never see a practice pitch or toss come their way as a hitter, as a batter, without knowing whether there are less than 2 strikes or 2 strikes. This is a simple implementation, a simple change and upgrade to the hitting and batting practice environment that will yield big results on some hitters, but it will definitely yield positive results on every hitter. Hitters that are better with their plan and approach at the plate are going to do better. Not every game, but overall, they will do better. And the pitches that hitters are swinging at with less than 2 strikes are different, as we know, are different or should be different than the pitches hitters are swinging at with 2 strikes. With less than 2 strikes, the hitters call the shots. The hitters make the decision. With 2 strikes, the pitcher and the umpire call the shots, and the hitter doesn't make the decision. The decision is made for them by the pitch, by the location of the pitch, and by the strike zone the umpire has that day. And some of you are very new to baseball or new to coaching. Most of you have experience with baseball. But even those of you that have very little experience or very little experience coaching hitters, this is a simple, easy thing that doesn't take any experience. You don't have to play at high school ball, college ball, pro ball, any of that. You don't even have to have played baseball at all to just tell your hitters, all right, this round is less than 2 strikes, or these 5 pitches are less than 2 strikes. The next 5, the second 5, or with 2 strikes. There should be a difference. The obvious difference is they will take more pitches, aggressively take, of course. They will aggressively take more pitches with less than 2 strikes and swing at a higher percentage of pitches with 2 strikes inherently. So hitters should know the count during all batting practice rounds. Do not confuse hitters. Do not overcomplicate this. What do I mean? Do not tell them a specific count. I wouldn't even coach that at the high school or even the college level. Until a player is 25, has seen 25,000 pitches, or has an extensive scouting report that's got a terabyte of metrics baked into it by the 40-person analytic team that the Dodgers or the Yankees have, guessing up there at the plate is not a good idea. Guessing what pitch is coming, and typically guesses come based on count and the pitcher. Throw that out. Less than 2 strikes and 2 strikes. That's all they need to know. Hitting is crazy hard to do successfully, consistently. Please, coaches, do not bring up hitting strategies by specific counts. This is something I hear all the time. It's been taught and it continues to be taught so often. Don't do it. As all of you listeners that have been here a long time know, very rarely do I come from a black and white approach. This is one of those times. Hitters do not need to know if it's a 2-0 or a 1-0 or a 1-1 count. Less than 2 strikes. And if you want to know more about that, search through the podcast. There are episodes we dive into this. There's an article on the website that dives into this. Now, of course, during the game, you don't need to tell them the count because the umpire or the scoreboard, the game will tell them the count. But in practice, the hitters should know the quantity of strikes. The hitter should know the strike count during all batting practice rounds. They don't need to know the exact count. They need to know the strike count during all batting practice rounds. You can keep it simple and say, this whole round is less than 2 strikes, or the entire practice is less than 2 strikes, or the entire practice is us hitting with 2 strikes, or this whole round is with 2 strikes, or with some junior high teams or high school teams definitely and above. You can move it around. For example, you could set it up that the first 2 pitches are with less than 2 strikes for that hitter in that round, and the next 2 are with 2 strikes and go back and forth. Let's say it's a 10-pitch round. You could just go 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. All right, trust me on this one. Let your hitters know whether there's less than 2 strikes and 2 strikes. It's important that we fine tune because this is something that just takes a ton of reps. Pitch selection, swing decision takes a ton of reps, but we have to fine tune it and we have to hone it in, and we have to start honing it in by using it with a lot higher volume of reps. Thus, we need to bake this into our batting practice rounds. I should say we should cement this into our batting practice rounds. When I coach a hitter, never do they not know how many strikes there are. That is a tip that you can take to the bank. And in a game where there's a lot of nuance and variability between players and teams and groups and ages, this is one of those few absolutes, in my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. You can email me, coachbo at 8020baseball.com, or through the website, 8020baseball.com. You can email me your thoughts on that. I love hearing from all of you. Let me know how your season's going. Let me know what you're learning. Send me your questions, coachbo, B-O, at 8020baseball.com. All right, now let's dive into the interview with Coach Sarancik. So Adam Sarancik comes on and he comes with a ton of wisdom. And the topic of this discussion, this interview, common questions from the 8020 Baseball podcast audience. In part 1, we're going to start off with the question, how does Coach Sarancik recommend hitters get more comfortable in the batter's box? How do we help our hitters become more comfortable in the batter's box and have less fear of being hit by the pitch? And his answer is phenomenal. It's a 3.5 to 4-part answer, and it's thorough, and all of it is practical and usable by all of us coaches. The second question that we'll dive into is how to best deal with difficult opposing coaches. How to deal with those opposing coaches that are acting a fool. We also will talk about in the interview, in the coaching discussion, in this interview, we will also talk about how to get buy-in amongst the coaches, how to get buy-in and how to sync up as a coaching staff when it comes to using new tactics, strategies, ideas, opinions, how to mesh well as a coaching staff. That can be a real challenge at any level. In part 2 of the episode, we're going to hit on what are 2 to 3 key things players could do in the offseason with limited resources and time to better their game. And we'll also talk about the pros and cons of showing players video, how much video to show them and analyze, how often, how that may vary for each level and age. As we show them the video of them hitting or pitching or fielding or catching in an attempt to improve their skills and let them see it. So we'll dive into that. Pumped up about that. Coach Sarancik is the owner of Elevate Sports Academy and mentors student athletes. He's based out of Oregon. Elevate Sports Academy elevates athletes in mental conditioning, nutrition, college and career and college counseling, sports skills. He has spent most of his adult life mentoring youth ages 8 to 22 in baseball, softball, soccer, and basketball. In baseball, Adam's teams have consistently won championships at every level, including youth leagues and high school level. In administration, he has served as a league founder, board member, and a coaches and players clinic director many times in his 40-plus year coaching career. He earned his Bachelor's of Science from San Diego State, his Juris Doctor degree from the University of San Diego of Law, and his Master of Arts in Teaching from Western Oregon University. He is the author of 3 Amazon Top 100 bestsellers. I highly recommend reading these. Coaching Champions for Life, The Process of Mentoring the Person, Athlete, and Player, and its companion book, Takeaway Quotes for Coaching Champions for Life. Then he also wrote A Ground Ball to Shortstop, How and Why Coaches See Their Game Differently Than Anyone Else. Book Authority rated Coaching Champions for Life as the number 14 all-time best baseball coaching book and the number 8 all-time best coaching ebook. Adam will have his 4th book published later this year titled Teacher, Role Model, Mentor, Lessons Learned from a Lifetime in Coaching. Adam's articles have been frequently published in ABCA's Inside Pitch. That's the American Baseball Coaches Association. It's the biggest coaching association out there for baseball coaches. They've been published, and I've read them over the years, even well before I met Adam, in Collegiate Baseball News and on coachesinsider.com, sportsengine.com, coachdeck.com, and it can also be found on his website, coachingchampionsforlife.com. Adam lives with his wife of 48 years, Karen, in Oregon. They have 2 daughters, Corinne and Lauren, and granddaughters, Amaya and Leia, and grandsons, CJ, Jaleel, and Jalen. I'm excited to have Coach Sarancik. I guarantee you're going to get a lot of good stuff out of this interview. With that said, let's dive into part 1. All right, I am here with Coach Adam Sarancik. It is great to have you back on the podcast, Adam. How are you doing, and what's new in your life?
Thanks, Coach Bo, for having me. I'm excited to do this again. Last time was such a great experience and look forward to being back again. I'm busy. Just got done with a 10-week top-level middle school clinic, followed by a league-wide 3-week coaches clinic. And then I've got my individual players that I'm working with and helping to coach my granddaughter's softball team. And I just want to keep going and going and going. But I want to thank you, first of all, for content you put out to everyone. I think it's great content. You're doing the community a great service. I want to thank the audience for being willing to listen and get better every day. Like we say in baseball, we don't want to have 17 years doing the same thing. We want to actually have 17 years of experience, not 1 year experience 17 times. So I'd like to start just real quick with a story that I think you and your listeners can not only identify with, but use in their coaching or whatever. And the story goes like this. So there's 2 wood choppers that work for a company doing exactly the same thing all day long. They chop wood 8 hours, 9 to 5 every single day. That's what they do. They chop wood and they work very, very, very hard. The only difference is the one guy, for an hour, he goes home for lunch. Every day in the middle of the day, he takes an hour off and he goes home, takes an hour off. And yet at the end of the day, the 2 workers have chopped the exact same amount of wood every single day. And the worker who doesn't take the break for an hour every day, this is driving him crazy. I'm working so hard. I know I'm working just as hard as the other guy. My technique is just as good. And yet he's taking an hour off every day and we're chopping the same amount of wood. So this goes on for a few weeks and finally can't take it anymore. He goes to the other worker. He says, look, I love you, man, but we're working the same number of hours, chopping the same amount of wood. How in the world are you able to take an hour off every day? And he says, well, what I do with that hour off every day is I go home and sharpen my axe. So everybody here taking an hour to get better, listen to your podcast is in effect sharpening their axe. So when they go back to their job, they can do it just a little bit better.
Yeah, I love that story to tie in what we're trying to do. And I think you're spot on about saying, just giving a shout out to those coaches that are tuning in and listening to this podcast. And that says a lot about them. Adam, I thank the coaches that show up each week and listen to this. And that says a lot about them. Coach Sarancik and I, what we're trying to do is just add some clarity to the path, the coaching journey, and try to give you a faster route to successful coaching. So with that said, I want to dive in right away. I want to hear from you. You're such a great speaker. And so So I'm going to turn it over to you here. We'll start with this first question. There is this common theme on emails that I get from coaches about their hitters, their players, their kid being scared of being hit by a pitch. It's very common. It's been around since the beginning of baseball, I'm sure. How do we get hitters more comfortable in the batter's box and have less fear of being hit by the pitch?
Yeah, very common, very good question, right? It's part of baseball, and it's going to be around for as long as you play the game. So we've got to get to the bottom of it. Well, let me give you our 5 things that I think will really help. And the first one is a little bit of a sore spot with me, a little bit of a rant, as you will. One of the things that I think youth baseball needs to change at the very young levels is I think we rush kids into real baseball too fast, too soon. Okay. And it's not necessarily a chronological thing. Players have to be developed to a certain level so that they can enjoy the game. I mean, one of my favorite quotes in that regard is fun is the great feeling of playing well. So coaches say all the time, just go out and have fun. And yet the kids are striking out. Their kids are making errors. They can't field the ball, throw the ball. And all these parents are watching it, expecting them to do well. And they're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And the pitchers can't throw strikes. They can't pick anybody off. The catchers can't throw anybody out. And the usual MO of the game is walk, stolen base, scored run by a pass ball or a wild pitch. And a lot of times, it's not a walk, it's hit by a pitch, okay? So the first thing we have to do is not let pitchers pitch who can't consistently throw strikes. The reason why the older kids don't worry about it as much is because they know the pitcher has got enough control not to hit them very often. We've got to take control of youth baseball, slow it down. I'm not saying don't let him pitch at all, but give the pitcher 3 pitches. And if the batter doesn't put the ball in play, then figure out a way of getting it in play. No walks, no strikeouts, no stolen bases for these levels of baseball until a certain level of proficiency and development is attained. If you have a bunch of 9 and 10-year-olds that are really good, by all means, put them at a level and on a team, whether it's a tournament team or in Oregon, we have junior baseball, whether it's federal level, which is the top, American level, middle, and national level, which is the lower level. Okay. What we don't do, unfortunately, is require those American and national levels to still play in a game where they're making a lot of baseball plays. Okay. The league and the coaches are not objectively looking at the game and saying, how many baseball plays are actually being made here during a game? How many balls is everybody getting? How many baseball plays are being made? And so the first thing that needs to happen is let's get pitchers to a point where they can throw strikes. That will alleviate a lot of the fear of getting hit by the pitch. Let's don't rush them into real baseball too soon before they're ready for it. So that's a whole other podcast on what youth baseball needs to do to make the game even better. It's not bad now. It's been great forever and ever. It can get a lot better. And I think it needs to get better today if it's going to survive. So that's number 1. Number 2, we have a saying in baseball in sports, that believing you're going to win the game is knowing you're going to win the fight. There's a certain thing that goes along with getting bigger and stronger. So we'll go into this a little bit later, probably at one point, but kids need to understand that to become a better player, they need to become a better athlete. So if you have some athleticism training where they feel better as an athlete, feel a little stronger, get a little more self-confidence in the way they feel about themselves, they're going to fear just a little bit less of being hit by a pitch. It just comes along with the territory. It's like being across the line in football. The guy's bigger than me, but I'm tougher than he is. There's a mentality to it that goes along with my confidence in who I am and how I go about my business and just being tough. So there's another saying, what players fear, they create. So if they fear being hit by the ball, or if they fear striking out, they're going to strike out. They're going to be hit by the ball. If they fear being picked off, they're going to get picked off. So the demon is the fear. The warrior is confidence. And the way you start that confidence is by making them a better athlete, continue to work on their strength, the way they feel from an athlete's point of view, from their athleticism point of view. Okay, that's second. Third, let's get into some practical things you can do. I turn all of my players into a catcher. I put my fastest pitcher on the mound and everybody catches it, because you'd be surprised how that mentality will change. It's like, okay, well, I can catch the ball, so I don't have to be afraid of it. There's a certain benchmark, there's a certain rite of passage that happens was like, well, I can catch this guy, then I can maybe hit this guy. And then I might progress it to, okay, let's have everybody bunt off the toughest pitcher. We'll teach them how to bunt and we'll bunt. Okay, I can catch this guy. I can bunt off this guy. So these levels of confidence start to build in the player. Or you'd be surprised either how many coaches don't teach the player how to avoid being hit, or they really don't work on it. It's the old saying, 20 times 5 is greater than 100 times 1. So, I mean, they may show them once, but they don't ever work on it again. So on my teams, we start every batting practice session with being thrown at by softer balls, not hard balls, and working on avoiding the pitch at the younger ages when they've got this in their mind of, gosh, am I going to get hit? Every pregame when we're throwing wiffles or softballs or whatever, first 3 pitches is thrown at the player, and they are working on bending over at the waist, getting back behind the back leg, the technique on avoiding getting hit. So again, this mentality of, okay, I'm not afraid of the speed. I am an athlete. If it comes at my feet, I can move, jump, or whatever. I can get it. I can avoid it. And if it comes at my upper body, I can tilt. I can do what I need to do to get out of the way. You can do all that and you're still going to get hit. So I'm not saying you're not going to avoid. So the last thing I'd recommend is hit them. Get out the wiffle balls and throw at them. Get out the spongy little rubber balls and throw at them. At the older ages, get out a tennis ball and throw at them. And they're just going to have to get used to the idea, you know what? I get hit, that hurts a little bit, and I move on. And just part of, getting more confident and getting used to that part of the game. So I don't avoid the problem. I don't lie to them and pretend that it's never going to happen. It's going to happen, but kind of those steps. And I think the most important of which is let's don't let people pitch that really shouldn't be pitching. Let's wait until the players are developed enough to throw a lot of strikes before we put these poor kids in the batter's box.
I really appreciate anybody who gives a response that is multifaceted and it controls and starts discussing the different variables. And when you explained it through, you're like, all right, we're going to start by reducing the chances of the poor pitch coming in. Okay. And then we're going to teach players how to move better and avoid those. And then lastly, if we can't take care of those 2 things, we're going to teach them the mindset of taking a pitch off the shoulder or what have you, off the leg, and just conditioning them to be a little bit tougher or just be able to stand there a little longer. But I like the approach. And I think listeners could take that answer that you just gave and use that to solve any problem that comes up. It's not just how do we fix one side of it. There's really 3 angles that you talked about, actually 3.5 really, that you talked about fixing with that problem. So anyways, that was really great to hear, Coach. And did you want to add to that, or do you want to go into the next question?
Well, I just want to emphasize again, in my experience, after the league letting pitchers pitch that should pitch, the athleticism piece is huge. And every player, young player that I've coached, once I've taught them agility training and just being good with their bodies, how to optimize the movement in their bodies, they get in the batter's box and it's like, okay, this guy's throwing, but I can avoid it. I can jump over it. I can move back. I can whatever. That athleticism piece, for many different reasons, again, maybe a subject for another podcast, but it's so important in the mindset of the player. It's like, I'm an athlete now. I can move. I can do things. All right. Just getting comfortable in their own bodies and being confident in their bodies is just huge for youth sports, big time.
I'll tell you what, I just think you really hit the nail right on the head with that answer. Now, the next question that we got here, and I like to keep this feeling like more of a discussion than a question answer interview, but I do think it's good to have these key questions that do come up. And I think we discussed this before we went on and started recording here is, what are the questions and concerns that the listeners are coming to me with? This is another one. How to best deal with difficult opposing coaches. I get this question that there was a bad experience with a difficult opposing coach, and there's a lot of moving parts, so it's not a simple answer. What's your take? What would be your advice for coaches to best deal with difficult opposing coaches?
Yeah, it happens. A lot of coaches are into winning and winning championships, and in my opinion, have the priority a little bit out of whack. I have a champion for life philosophy that it's about the person first and then the athlete and then the player, and coaches themselves. They need to be champions for life before they can coach champions for life. Our goal is to be a mentor in sports, and we want our players to be better people because we coach people, not sports. So to be a mentor, you got to be a great teacher, right? And you got to be a great role model. So I wish the leagues and the coaches would take that approach. Regardless of the outcome, I want these kids to get better. I want them to develop as people, as athletes, and as players. I just want them to be better. It's going to start with me and how I act. So I want to be a good role model. So when I'm dealing with a difficult opposing coach or coaches, the first thing I want to make sure is I'm being a good role model to my team. I want to be calm. I want to be respectful. I want to demonstrate how to deal with adversity and this type of thing, not just in sports, but in life for my team. I'm not going to scream back and forth or trade barbs or anything like that. I'm going to be a role model like I'm supposed to be. That's what the league wants. That's what the parents want. That's my first and biggest job. Secondly, I think you need to build rapport with the other coaches. Let me tell you a story on my own growth path in all my years of coaching. So I coached this high school team for 4 years, and eventually we got to be very, very good. Went to state finals back-to-back years, like many teams, and a crosstown rival, an arch rival. And about the third year, I did what you shouldn't do. I started checking in on social media because my parents were talking about it. And this arch rival's parents were just ripping me for being just not a good coach and person in every single way. I couldn't figure it out. What's going on here? I know I'm not having any trouble. Matter of fact, their coach and I got along fantastic, but the parents are still ripping. So I went to thought about it. And the fourth year that I coached this high school team, the fields we played on were fairly close. The parents sat close. Before every single inning, I started talking with the parents of the other team, asking them how they're doing, which one was their kid out there. I was making more of an effort to compliment their kids on how they were playing and making great plays. Oh my word, what a shock. All of a sudden on social media, I was the greatest coach who ever coached. Their attitude toward me changed just dramatically. So one advice I would have, if you know these other coaches are difficult, I would go before the game and talk to them, learn their names, ask them about their families, build some rapport with them, okay? Build some rapport with them. Get them to know that you're more than just a coach. They're out here. We're all trying to achieve the same purpose and mentoring these players. Build a little rapport, and you'd be surprised things will soften up just a little bit. The third bit of advice I'd have is have the league be the bad guy. And what I mean by that is the leagues have rules. The leagues have standards. Every league has them about rapport that you're to have and the way that you're to conduct yourself as a coach. Well, I know a lot of leagues, if you have a public address announcing system, they have an announcement before the game. And that announcement, by and large, is how we're going to conduct ourselves as coaches, as players, and as fans. Have that little reminder set. If you don't have a PA system, use whatever your communication systems are league-wide, email or one of the other apps that you're using. Have reminders sent out on a regular basis to the entire league that this is what we expect from our coaches. This is why we're here. This is the mission of the league. We are developing players. We're teaching life lessons within the game for beyond the game. And that is all about, first and foremost, how we conduct ourselves. So if the public address systems don't work, if the communications generally to all the coaches on a regular basis don't work, the third thing that needs to happen is the league needs to send some representatives out to the game where these coaches are acting the way they act. And the league representatives need to go right up to the coaches and say, hey, Coach Smith, really appreciate your time and all the things that you're doing for these kids. I look forward to watching you coach today. And I know you're going to represent the league very well, the way you go about your business and being a role model to all these kids. So have a good game. And that message is going to get through to them that, you know what, people are watching. So I think you need to take it off you in those ways. And I think you'll have a lot more success than just having the kind of atmosphere that you want for your games.
I love the two proactive approaches or recommendations. One, get the league more involved. Let them take more of the heat. So it's not an individual versus individual, but a system-wide approach. And then I love the idea of building rapport with the opposing coach. And it makes me think for the listeners, when you go over to build rapport, you don't learn about how well they're doing that season necessarily. Maybe you don't ask questions about their shortstop or their kids, how the kid's playing, but maybe some other questions about who they are. Hey, so how long you been doing this or other things. You live nearby and get their name. And so you're on a first name basis. And that can definitely help. I really like that approach, Coach. So it kind of makes me think the natural reaction, one is maybe not to talk to the opposing coach. And two, maybe if you go over there, you learn about their best three hitters or you learn about how great their record is. But really, I think maybe steering a little clear of that and just try to build a quick little friendship rapport there, even if it's just 3 or 4 minutes, can go a long ways when things get a little heated in the fifth inning.
And at youth baseball, the other coach has got a son in the game. So for sure, learn who his son is, what position he plays, and do everything you can to compliment that player before, during, and after the game. You want to make sure that you think that player's great, and you'll be surprised. It's kind of like the old saying that people love to hear themselves speak. Well, coaches love to hear how good their players are, their children are. So yeah, learn who they are and compliment them frequently. You'll ought to get mileage out of that.
Most definitely. I like the idea, the strategy of compliments. Go over and compliment, and even more specifically, compliment the kids, the coach's kid.
Absolutely.
That might not be something that happens the first time around until after the game, but from there on, you will have started building some of that better rapport by giving those compliments about the team, how they're coached up, and about the coach's kid. Do you have any suggestions, Coach, for, say something happens, the coach gets heated, becomes overly aggressive? What are some strategies that coaches could use to defuse the situation, to de-escalate it?
Let the umpire be the bad guy. That's why the umpire's there. That's part of the umpire's job. As opposed to, again, directing your comments to the other coach, which is going to end up in a personal battle. You just call timeout and go over to the umpire. And again, you don't want to make necessarily a public display out of it, but you say, I'd really appreciate if you could get the game back on a level that everybody's going to respect and be proud of. And all umpires, I mean, again, at the youth level, we do have a lot of really young kids, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds. Maybe you don't want to put them in that spot. But if you have an adult behind the plate or out on the bases, especially if you've done your job of getting to know them, and we'll probably go over that in a minute, let them do their job. That's part of their job. They're trying to make sure that this game is got about in a very orderly manner. And if the league is there and the league representative's there and it gets way out of hand, then you just look over at the league representative and go, something needs to be said here. I've had league representatives call timeout, go on the field, or go to the dugout and say, Coach, if the umpire doesn't remove you, I'll remove you. So if it gets like way out of hand, you can even go to that extent. But I start with the umpire first. What you don't want to do is engage in a 1v1. That's never going to go, because you're going to put this as a battle of egos, and it's just not going to go well. It's going to look bad. It's going to escalate, and you just don't want that to happen. So yeah, I'd start with the umpire, then go to the league. If this person is a problem with your team, it's probably not just your team. This person or these coaches are probably that way regularly. So the league needs to be made aware of it, and those other steps that we talked about need to be taken.
Yeah, and I think the 1v1 that you mentioned is definitely something we want to avoid if it's getting escalated, the tension is there. I think the 1v1 approach can work if you build rapport and if you use first name and you talk nice, and it's kind of like talking to a friend, like, hey, I'm your friend, I want to help you here. I think that approach, like you talked about earlier, can help too. If you are going to go 1v1, it better be from a kind of a friendly, like you would be talking to a friend. And if you can't handle it there, you need to go to the umpire. Now, I've seen this, Coach, and I want your take on this. I've seen this play out numerous times in my career of coaching. The coach that wants to de-escalate the situation because the opposing coach is out of control then goes to the umpire, and the other coach actually escalates it, because now it looks like if there's something wrong with me, you're going behind my back. You're going to the umpire and you're saying something about me. And I don't think this strategy works as often as it should. So I think there's got to be kind of a middle ground here, because I recommend you bring the other coach over and you have a discussion with the mediator, the umpire. I've seen this happen many a times where the coach that's trying to de-escalate things goes over to the umpire, and I've seen it be more often a problem than a solution unless you bring the other coach over and get them involved and work together. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it happens just naturally. You make a great point. I don't interpret it as going behind the back. I interpret it as, I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not dealing with you. I'm going to go first to the person in charge of the game. And what always happens, you're absolutely right, the other coach comes over. But now we've got a three-way conversation with the person in charge. And it is rare that the umpire will say, you know what, just let the guy be a jerk. No, the umpire's not going to do that. The umpire is going to tell the other guy, either you get it together and start conducting yourself the way we expect, or I'll remove you from the premises. If it's that big a problem where it's really bothering you, it's bothering everybody, including the umpire. But your point is a good one. You don't want to make it seem like you're trying to do something secretive, but it's never secretive. You just call timeout and you walk over to the umpire and you say this. No, you're not whispering it to him. Then the other coach will come over and now you'll have a conversation, the three of you. It's kind of like a sidebar in litigation. You're not having it in front of everybody. Now you're going to take the two attorneys and have it with the judge. Well, that's what's going to happen here. But what you don't want to do is make it immediate immediately a 1v1 with the other coach. Take it to the umpire, have your conversation, and I guarantee you 99% of the time, the umpire is not happy with the way the other coach is acting either, and they will lay down the law about what's going to happen from there on out. If that doesn't happen, if the umpire is afraid to reestablish the boundaries or whatever, then the league will get involved, because absolutely 100% of the time, that will not be tolerated. It would be a highly, highly, highly unusual political situation where the other coach was also the president of the board and in charge of the league, and then you just need to go find another league to play in. If the politics are that bad where that kind of conduct is going to be allowed, you just need to find another league to play in. But I've never had that experience. 99% of the time, the umpire is going to take care of it and say, look, you either start comporting yourself the way we expect, or I'll remove you, and or the league will take care of it for you. It'll just naturally evolve into a three-way conversation.
Definitely. And I think like you're combining the approaches here where you mentioned build out rapport, find out their names, speak to them like this at a coach. You say, hey, Jim, come over here as you're walking towards the umpire. Hey, Jim, come on. And then go from there. Now, I've had coaches email me, and I've also seen this, and it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen where the opposing coach gets just egregious with their behavior. There's an umpire that doesn't step in, that is timid, that doesn't want to get involved. Maybe he's young, but they don't step in and they don't handle it. My question is, what if the umpire doesn't handle it? And also, what are some other examples of behavior that's not acceptable? Just so we can clarify, so the listeners know exactly what we're talking about.
Well, that, unfortunately, what you described, Coach, is becoming more common. This does seem like in sports, we're hearing about a lot more stories where people are, whether it's parents fighting, coaches attacking umpires. Actually, I think it's the poor officials in these sports that are getting attacked more than everybody else. This is like worldwide. We're seeing a lot of stories. So I don't have an answer to why people are getting more aggressive. Just from my 40 plus years and doing this as a coach, I've never been a part of a league that tolerated it. If the umpire couldn't handle it, like I say, is somehow, some way stepping back, removing, we got to protect the kids first. I'll pull my team off the field if I feel they're not safe. So if the umpire's not handling it, I'll pull them off and I'll make a call and we'll figure out a way to get somebody else involved. I mean, if somebody came at me and attacked me, we'll get the police there. I mean, that's an assault and it's not going to be tolerated. So, but I'm going to protect my players first in every way that I can. But I don't have a reason why it's happening more. But you're right, it is happening more. The more common things are just verbal intimidation from the other side, yelling things out to the field that are really not appropriate. First of all, every now and then you hear something being directed at your team, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I'll deal with my team. You can deal with yours. So they shouldn't be calling out any kind of negativity. I don't see it from coaches in my experience as much as I do fans. A lot of the fans direct a lot of inappropriate comments to officials. In baseball, they even think it's the tradition in the game. And it's, come on, we've got human beings and sometimes kids here, and you're yelling out things to try to intimidate them. It's just wrong. So a lot of the comments come from parents, and sometimes too, they yell out things that they don't like about what's going on, not just balls and strikes, but different tactics and things like that. And so they'll start directing comments towards us. And again, that's an umpire thing. They've got to take control. It's a league thing that they've got to take control. You just got to control your own fans. Again, the same responsibility as a role model you have to require of your parents and your fans, that everything's positive, everything's directed toward your team, nothing negative, and certainly nothing directed toward the other team, except if they have something positive to say, by all means. But that's not my experience, is it usually comes from the fans. I don't have a lot of stories or examples of it coming from the other coach, other than most of what I'm thinking of going through my mind right now is comments directed toward the umpire, trying to intimidate the umpire, balls and strikes, out and safe, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of trying to influence the game. And unfortunately, if you don't have a strong umpire that can put a stop to it, say another word and you're gone. I don't know what you can do about it immediately. I haven't had the situation where somebody's coming at my team or at me very often. Don't have a lot of other examples to give you. I've had really good success having umpires take control, having leagues take control, and like I say, building rapport with the other coaches to where we're getting along. We have an understanding of why we're here and what we're really trying to do here. It's not about wins and losses.
Excellent. I know we're diving into this a little bit, but it's a very important topic in my opinion, because initially, I think on the surface, we think of improving as coaches as creating better drills, that we're getting better prepared for the game in terms of the scoreboard. But one of the things I think we can do, coach, is take our experience and share strategies that can help alleviate pain and headaches as much as score more runs. So scoring more runs is great. I get a lot of feedback from coaches that they want to score runs and they want to play well. They want their team to do well, of course, and they want their players to get better, but they also want to minimize and alleviate all the headaches. So I think this is one of those things that may not get you more runs on the scoreboard or fewer runs on the opposing team side of the scoreboard, but is giving you a plan or giving you some ideas on how to mitigate or proactively reduce and eliminate some of these issues that are popping up more and more, it seems like. And I would say this, coach, I really want to emphasize if in doubt, if it gets bad and the umpire doesn't have control, take your team off the field. I recommend coaches have one single plan of action to do in their back pocket. They may never need it, but if you coach 3, 4, 5 years, you might need it. And you say, you know what? You tell the umpire, I'm taking my team, we're out of here. Now, when you do that, I recommend coaches have a plan of action, whether that's to go do slip and slides or barbecue or go to the local pizza parlor, have something ready to go. Go to the local Dave and Buster's, have something ready to go. The local go-kart track, have something in your back pocket to go to that you hope you never need, just like insurance. You hope you don't need it, but it's nice to have it. So I think that's always good to have that, because then you're going to be a little less hesitant to say, hey, let's go team. You could go play a scrimmage, an intra-squad scrimmage for another hour and then go get pizza. But anyways, I just wanted to add that it's a contingency plan. And I think having a contingency plan to take your team off the field, you don't just take them off and go, now what do we do? I think it's important you have something to go do, something planned that's fun, because you don't want to penalize the players for the other team, the fans, problems and issues and behavior. You want to make the thing that they're going to go do a lot of fun or somewhat fun, so you're not penalizing the kids. So anyways, I just want to throw that out there, coach. And do you have any thoughts on that?
Quote that has kind of a universal application, and it ties in everything before we move on to the next topic. We've said it a lot, but this kind of applies here too. Players are likely to forget what you said. Players are likely to forget what you did, but players are not going to forget how you made them feel. They want to have a good experience playing for you. If you want loyalty, if you want players that are not only play hard for you during the time that they are with you, but are going to recommend that other families and players play for you, they're going to remember how you made them feel. So the way that you handle everything is going to give them a feeling about what it's like to play for you. And that's what's going to last far longer than anything else.
All right, that wraps up part 1 of our interview with Coach Sarancik. If you enjoyed that half as much as I did, then you definitely enjoyed it. Thank you for being a coach. You should be proud of yourself for being a coach. It's an awesome way to give back to your community, to your family. And while we're at it, why not be good or great coaches? That's why you're checking in each week here as we fine-tune our coaching game. Or for some of you younger coaches just starting off, trying to hit that accelerator to speed up the learning curve. It's always great being here with everybody. Head over to 8020baseball.com for articles, videos. Got 14 videos over there, a dozen articles. And until next week, let's take care of our health so we can be there and be at our best for our family, for our close friends, our team. And let's take this information out to the field. And like any good 2-strike hitter, sometimes you just got to put it into play and see what happens. So take it out there, put it into play. Have a great rest of your week. And until next week, adios.
This has been the 80-20 Baseball Masterclass. Take it to the field.